All right, so here we are. This is your roadmap to health. This is what this class is about, all right? Now I want you to be able to use this and apply it in your life directly. I want you to be able to live healthier from this information. That's the point. That's why you guys are here, okay? Now, I'm gonna tell you the end of the story first, and then we're gonna tell you how to get there, okay? So for me, when I think of health, I see health as a combination of things. It's a little bit like the weather. You've heard me use this analogy before, but think of the weather, right? When I say, hey, it's nice weather outside, what am I talking about when I say weather? Do I talk about, is it the temperature or the humidity or the sunshine or not? Well, it's all of it, right? Weather is a combination of a bunch of stuff. So health is just the same way. It's a combination of a bunch of stuff. Now, I think of it in three very broad categories, okay? So the first is your durability. I'll tell you all three. It's your durability, your resilience, and your growth. That is the three things that make up the expression of health, okay? So durability, when I say that, I mean it physically, but also not physically. So physically is kind of obvious. It's like what happens if I turn my ankle over? How strong my ligaments are, it resists me spraining my ankle or not, right? And when I get hit, can I not break the bone or do? That's how durable you are, okay? Physically. Now, obviously emotionally, can we experience things that really hurt, but it doesn't knock us down, so to speak. It doesn't spin us off into a bit of depression or other negative things, right? That's how durable we might be, okay? Also immune system wise, if you get challenged in your immune system, can your immune system just handle it and you just keep on going? Those are all measures of durability, okay? Then the next one is your resilience. So if I do break a bone, how quickly do I heal it? If I do get really down, really hurt, depressed, how quickly can I get back up and go back into my life, right? How well do I bounce back when I do get bent out of shape, okay? That's your resilience. And then there's growth. Now, that one is an obvious one only when you think about it a little bit differently. We resist traumas, we resist things. We all know our toughness, our durability, right? And we all have experienced getting bent out of shape, getting knocked down, we all get up, we all have, okay? But it doesn't just stop there. When we get back up, we then take a step forward, right? When you break a bone and then you heal that bone, the site of the break heals back stronger and more dense than it was before. That site that was broken is now a stronger portion of your bone. If you ever were to break that bone again, it won't break in that site, it breaks someplace else because it's stronger, right? We've all heard of post-traumatic stress disorder, yes? Mm-hmm. PTSD, it's very common, it's very famous. It's actually, it's not that common. It's actually somewhat rare. But of course it's famous, we all hear about it. But do you know what is very common? It's totally common. It's called post-traumatic growth. We all experience that. In our common tongue, we call it character. We call it like strength. And we all have that too, right? You go through crap, which we all do, and we all come out of it, and we're all stronger for it, okay? Now, of course, we all have also had things that sometimes leave a little scar, are a little bit harder just to shake off, right? But the growth we might experience for those things aren't quite as obvious, but it still can be there. My point is that's growth, right? It comes in physical terms, it comes in internal physiological terms. Your immune system, as another example. There's a lot of growth in your immune system. Every single time you encounter germs, your body handles it and remembers it and passes it on to the next generation of your immune system cells. So when you encounter those germs again, you are even more fit and capable to deal with it, okay? That's growth. It happens all the time, right? That's the expression of health. Your durability, your resilience, and your growth, okay? It sounds awesome. It should, I hope, right? And now the question is, how do we get there? How do we cultivate it? Right? That's the end of the story. Now let's talk about the beginning of the story. How do we get there, okay? There are 4 essentials to your life that helps grow this. Like if I'm talking about a garden, you need sunlight, you need soil, you need water, right? Well, in life, here comes the 4, okay? Now again, some of this will be obvious, but I want you to think about it with some new eyes and new mind too, all right? Now, the first, I'll tell you the 4, and then we'll break it down, okay? So there's stimulation, there's recovery, there's nourishment, and there's elimination, okay? So I remember someone telling me one time when I was learning this, and as I was constructing this idea and this roadmap in my own life, I remember someone said, do you have a healthy brain? All you need is glucose and oxygen. That's what she said. You just need glucose and oxygen. Basically, you need like fuel, which is nourishment, and basically she was just saying you need stimulation, right? And nourishment. And I'm realizing, no, that's not complete. It's not complete. You have to have recovery, okay? So let me break these down. Now, stimulation, this is a broad category. Now, the way I want you to think about this, if we're looking at a high level, okay, how to use this information is you look at your own life, you look at the things that you are dealing with, the things that you have a little quiet struggle with in the back of your mind. And once I fill out these 4 things, start looking at like, which one might I do a little better? Like, now you know what area to put some of your energy, your resources, your attention towards, okay? Because sometimes, like, we all want to improve things, but sometimes we don't know where to focus our improvement. So this will give you that roadmap, okay? So stimulation is the first one. It's of course a very broad category, okay? What it means is anything you're doing, like it's what we're doing right now, as an example. I'm speaking, you're listening, this is a class, you're learning, it might provoke new thought, hopefully, okay? That's stimulation, right? If we're just talking and laughing with each other, just having a good time, you know, hey, I got some whiskey we might enjoy afterward, right? Like as we're joking around, okay? Our laughter, our social connection, we're both laughing at the same thing. That is stimulation, okay? If you go running, you're moving your body, okay? Movement is worth highlighting here. Like, if you think about movement, think about a big giant circle, and this whole circle constitutes all movement. Me moving my arm, you wiggling your feet, you walking to the grocery store from your parking spot, all movement, okay? But exercise is a much smaller circle that fits inside it. Okay, so we often think about exercise as how we get movement. You don't need to just limit your movement to exercise. Like, every time you open a can, rather than just pressing a button with an automatic one, you're using movement, right? If you want to grind your coffee as opposed to, right, you're using movement. If you take the stairs instead of the elevator, you're using movement, okay? More movement, the better. More movement, probably the longer you live, most likely, okay? So that's an American thing that we all can work on, you know, because we Americans, we don't move a lot, okay? But, so that's an example of stimulation. I'm actively working on creating more laughter in my household, you know, as a form of stimulation, you know? But then it's also variety of things. If you drive to work the same way all the time, you could take a different route. Challenge yourself in terms of the direction, okay? Giving yourself something that is not the same. That too counts as good stimulation, okay? So, chiropractic care, when you get adjusted, that also is a very, very precise and specific kind of stimulation, you know? Any kind of body work, massage, physical therapy, any of that, that's all the same, okay? But most of this stuff, information will be about your do-it-yourself things that you can execute yourself. All right, so that's that category. Now, nourishment. Nourishment, basically, next category, is anything you get from the environment. So obviously that's food, but it's also water, it's also breath, and it's sunlight. You need them all, okay? Sunlight there's interesting things about sunlight that's relatively newer science around it. Like it doesn't just sunburn you, okay? It actually, the radiation, particles from the sun itself penetrates our skin and gets our little tiny mitochondria inside our cells to behave a little better, right? Like sunlight is actually a nutrient, and we are worse off if we always live inside. So as an example, the way I'm looking at this roadmap, for me, I work inside, I live inside. You know, I actually don't get a lot of sunlight, I really don't. So for me, that's an area that I can do better. You know, I can actually get some more sun, right? Don't be afraid of the sun. Don't be afraid of the sun, okay? Breath, okay? I talk a lot about breathing a lot in my practice. Like we have lungs that go from up here all the way down to right down here. They fill most of our rib cage. And most of us are barely using our lungs. If we took our lungs out and unfolded them, and so I just had flat surface area, the amount of surface area of your lung would cover a tennis court, a full tennis court. That's how much is in your lungs, okay? If you add up all of the waste that your body gets rid of, that is obviously pooping and peeing and sweating and breathing. Breathing is more than the rest of it combined. Okay, but that brings us into a different category. That's into elimination. But obviously your lungs take in the oxygen you need, okay? I'm mixing that a little bit, but your lungs do both, okay? Any questions on this stuff so far? All right, so let's go to elimination, okay? Because we're there already. I want you to think of it like this. If someone was sick and they were consuming broccoli and poison, which would be more important to do? Eat more broccoli or consume less poison?
Less poison.
That is an excellent answer, excellent choice. That is correct, okay? The ancient Romans called this the via negativa, the negative way. In other words, to know something by knowing what it's not. Improving a thing by getting rid of something, okay? We are often inspired to take action on things, and I was just talking about stimulation, it's very important, but also just like the elimination of things is very important. Like now this honestly often will apply to our social lives, okay? So if we are a little anxious, a little depressed, struggling with various things, which would usually be more helpful? Increase your social media consumption or decrease your social media consumption? There's a very obvious answer here.
Decrease.
Right. Now, we've just been going through a lot of lousy things here in our 2020. There's a lot of crap that we're all dealing with, right? And so, like, would watch more news be more helpful for our well-being or watch less news? People might disagree with me, but I got the audience right here. I got the mic, so it's less news. I would believe would be better for us all, right? So inundate ourselves with less crap. Okay, you can go a long way. Even fasting, right? Like I remember one time I was sitting at the end of my office, end of my day, and I'm hungry, and someone offered me this little like sugary candy snack. Here you go. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm hungry, I want to eat that. But then I'm realizing, sometimes hunger isn't actually bad for you, and food isn't always good for you, okay? Keep that in mind. Hunger's not always bad, and food isn't always good, okay? Especially some food. So skip a day, fast a day, skip a meal, right? Skip a meal and wrap around the night and skip the next meal. Give your body a chance, your digestion a chance to catch up and eliminate everything before you throw more stuff in, as an example, okay? This is an area that we Americans could probably use a little more awareness around. Like, it's not always about adding more. Sometimes it's about taking away. Another example in this is in our environment. Just in general, like a natural environment. Like, let's say you've got, here's an example, Lake Erie. Lake Erie, up in north of Ohio, used to be like a dead lake. It was so polluted that there was no fish, nothing. It was just a dead lake, toxic thing. And now it's a living, beautiful thing, lots of fish and so on. It's much better, okay? What'd they do? They stopped polluting it. They just stopped dumping crap into the lake, and nature took care of it, okay? So they, via negativa, they stopped, all right? So same thing in our lives sometimes. Sometimes it isn't about buying the next thing. It can be also about getting rid of crap, Like you guys are actually pretty good at this. You'll cycle out toys, and we do the same thing in our house with our kids, Like sometimes toys that haven't been played with for a week, they get disappeared, and the kids never miss them, They don't, right? And it's like, yeah, they never miss them. One more thought on this. There was this interesting experiment about making choices, right? And so they did this experiment in this grocery store, and they set up this booth, and they had 24 different jellies where people could try, and buy or not, right? And people tasted it and was interested and so on, and they had a lot of people come, a whole bunch of people come, and people bought or they didn't, so on, right? Then they had another grocery store another time, and they set up another table, and they had 6 jellies, just 6. 25% of the choices, right? And they had people come, less people come because there's less jellies, but less people showed up, but they bought and whatnot, and they took a look at what happened afterward. Even though this 24 jelly booth had a bunch of people and this 6th jelly booth had less people, which of those booths do you think sold more jelly?
6 samples.
The 6 samples. I led you there, right? You could sniff it out. You could sniff where I was going. And the reason why is people had like decision paralysis. There was so many choices, and so they just didn't pick any. They had less choices, and so they picked more, right? So kids and toys, right? Sometimes less toys, they'll have more fun, right? Sometimes in our own lives, right? The world, have you ever looked at Netflix and spent 45 minutes deciding what to watch?
Last night.
Me too, last night. All right, kid.
I'm not in this
Right? So sometimes a little less is a little better. Eliminating some things in our lives, sometimes. Okay, not all the time, but sometimes the context is right. Okay. Remember back in the day when you didn't have a choice, you just watched what was on, and so you just picked and you watched, right? But anyway, on demand isn't always better. Anyhow. All right. So now, we didn't talk about recovery yet. Now this is another weak spot in our culture, and we got a blind spot for a couple parts of our recovery. So recovery here, obviously that means sleep, but it doesn't just mean asleep. It also means wakeful resting. Okay. Let me give you a couple data pieces on this. They had an experiment done where they took rats and they had a whole cage of rats and they didn't feed them anything. And they had a whole cage of rats and they didn't let them sleep. Which group of rats died first?
That didn't sleep.
That's exactly right. Digest that for a second. No food versus no sleep. The lack of sleep killed them first. So in the hierarchy of like the essentials you need in your life, sleep trumps food, you guys. Seriously, you'll die of lack of sleep before you'll die of hunger. Okay? You need them both, but one will get you sooner. Sleep. Okay? Now, some people feel like they can go with like less sleep and be fine. Okay? Most of those people, in fact, statistically, 49 out of 50 people will be kidding themselves if they think they can go full on, be fine with less sleep. The reason why, what we do when we sleep, well, a ton of stuff. We do a ton of stuff when we sleep, but the reason why it'll kill you, see, what your brain does when you're awake is, like I said in the very beginning, you need like glucose and you need oxygen. So in other words, your brain is eating, it's doing stuff, but everything that's alive, that eats, what must it also do? Eliminate poop. That's right. Your brain itself, the cells of your brain takes in nourishment, does stuff, and then it eliminates waste. Okay, but your brain cannot eliminate waste when you are awake. So what your brain does is it builds up, it swells with metabolic waste. So what I'm telling you is your brain begins to swell with brain pee. Gross, yes, but this is real. Think about it, okay? Your brain swells with waste, with pee, brain pee. It's not actually urine, it's not actually urine. But you can think of it like that. And then when you sleep, your brain flushes and it drains all of its metabolic waste through your systems and ultimately out to your kidneys and ultimately
Ergo, how you get rid of headaches.
What?
Ergo, how you get rid of headaches.
That's right. And why a headache will even occur in the first place
yeah.
because of it. Okay, other reasons for that too, but yes, your brain cleanses itself when you sleep. And 49 out of 50 people need 7 to 9 hours to do it completely. 7 to 9. 7 to 9.
I need 12.
Some people need 12. 7 to 9, right? Most. Now, that 1 out of 50 person I'm talking about, now there actually is some people who have a slightly different genetic tweak, and their brain can actually cleanse it differently and a little bit quicker, and they can actually do the same amount of cleansing on less sleep. Okay? A little less sleep. You should just assume that's not you, statistically, because it's not. So 49 out of 50 people, 7 to 9. Just assume you're you're in the 98%, okay? I assume that of myself. We all should just assume that. Unless you've taken a genetic test and you know otherwise, assume you need 7 to 9, okay? Some people feel like they can function better with it and they can go okay with it because what your body does is it drums up your stress hormones. It deploys more blood sugar and more adrenaline and cortisol in order for you to rise to this challenge, this stressor that you've done for yourself because you're not sleeping. And the catch here is sometimes we can actually even be addicted to our own stress hormones. We can actually crave our own stress response. So the people who like can't go to sleep, don't want to go to sleep, and just want to stay up and go, sometimes they're hooked on their own surge of adrenaline, which is very costly over time. It's very expensive on the body. Okay, so now we're looking at this roadmap, right? And we're talking about these essentials. And so that area right there is one that probably a lot of people can get a lot of mileage from. Go to bed earlier. Okay, that's someone doing a little doing massage therapy where they're finishing with some of the crystal bowls. Okay, all right. So I didn't say recovery was only sleep, though. We also talked about waking sleep, waking rest. And what that means, what that looks like, is like you are chilled out, relaxed, not doing anything. You're not listening to music, you're not talking with somebody, you're not reading something, you're not on your phone. This is not waking rest recovery. It is not. It's stimulation. Okay? Now, here is a little clue. Now, a lot of people aren't very good at resting and recovering and disengaging. A lot of people, like most of us, aren't good at this. And the way you know is if you can sit somewhere and you've got nothing to do and you're bored. What that means is your brain did not disengage, it stayed at the higher level of action.
Shut
Right.
down.
Right. You can think of your brain's activity in 4 parts. The analogy I use for it is like imagine you are on a mountain and you can go down the mountain and you're at the beach, and from the beach you can get into the shallow water and then you can go into the deep water. Okay? The land is when you're awake. The mountaintop is when you're high awake, you're engaged, you're going, you're engaged. Okay? The brain wave for this is called the beta brain waves, if you want to be specific. Okay? Now, when you disengage and you relax, you go down to the beach. Those are different brain waves. Okay? You are a little less direct, but your brain is calmer, your being is a little calmer, you're certainly not bored, you're just still. Okay? So what we need what I would like, and I teach people this, is I want you to practice the idea between shifting between high awake and low awake, between fully engaged and disengaged, but being awake. And what you're doing when you do this engaged, like chill out and relax thing, is it's like you're beating a pathway down that mountainside. Actually, literally, you're also creating neural connections inside your brain. Okay, you're making a pathway from the mountaintop to the beach, so your brain gets good at switching between states of high and low. And if your brain gets good at switching between states, your brain is good at switching between states. That means it can switch between awake and into sleep easier. So do you ever find that it's difficult to fall asleep? Do you ever lie there awake forever? Does anybody out there at home in TV land like can't fall asleep and lie there awake for a while? Well, your brain's not switching between states well. Okay, so you can't just try harder at night to fall asleep. You have to kind of train yourself during the day to be able to disengage. Okay? I mean, our phones are an all-out assault on our ability to disengage ourselves. We, at a moment's notice, we always have more stimulation and more things to like just go with, right? I mean, for God's sakes, we can even sit on the toilet and be going, not that I ever do that. Not that any of you ever do that either. Okay? No one ever answers texts from the toilets. No, not right. Right. Okay. There's a lot of awkward smiling in the audience here. All right. So this is the idea. In older eras in our culture, and if you go way, way back to ancient, even tribal times, prehistoric times, we had a lot of idle time. There was plenty of time where you didn't have to do much. Plenty. There really was. okay? Like the idea around a hunter-gatherer. They don't have to hunt and gather all the time. A lot of times they're very good at it, and so they get something and they're good for a while, and they can like just putz around for a while, you know? Like, but in our particular American society, we are very bad at this. The notion of stopping and disengaging does not have cultural value, right? Here's another little experiment people did. They did this thing where they took somebody and they had them just work all day long, like they kind of chunk it into 100-minute sections. This person worked 100 minutes straight, 100 minutes straight, 100 minutes straight, and they measured their productivity. Then they took another group of people, they had them work 90 minutes, stop for 10, and do absolutely nothing. They couldn't check emails, nothing. They just sat there and were still for 10 minutes. And then they had them go again, 90-10, 90-10, 90-10, all day long, all week long, big group of people. So this group of people did more, they had more work time than this group of people, okay? Who got more done though? Who was more productive? Come on. Obviously, you smell it. You smell what I'm cooking. That's right. 90-10 outproduced 100 straight, okay? That's a lot of leverage on just giving your brain a little disengaged, relaxed moment and go back at it better, right? So recovery, you guys. Now, one component of the recovery, which is also bleeds over into stimulation, is switching. Like again, you get stimulation from changing tasks, but you also get recovery by changing tasks. Like there's overlap in some of these things, right? So I focus a lot on recovery because we need to hear about that. And I could talk about nutrition and food, and that conversation will never end. I would talk for hours and hours and hours, and it would never end because you always get new information. But my notion on food, the one little takeaway, the easy idea, is think it like this. If you could eat what a wealthy farmer could eat 100 years ago, okay? So you try to take away some of the technology out of your food, right? So it's the fresh stuff, it's the local stuff, right? It's the naturally prepared stuff, right? And but give yourself a variety of things and enough of things, right? That would be the way I want you to think about food. Okay? It's the simplest, quickest way to think about food, right? All right, so there's our four. There's our four essentials. Again, it's nourishment, stimulation, recovery, and elimination. And look into your life and see if you're weak in one of these components. We all have areas that we could do a little better on. But knowing if we do this better, it really will ultimately lead to just way better execution of our health over here, right? Like one way this shows up, just as it showed up like 3 times today in my office. I have people say to me, I hurt, my joints are hurting. Like that's suggesting to me their durability is a little less. They can't go and do something and like help somebody move if they wanted to because they're hurting too much. And also it'd take them a long time to recovery, so the resilience is a little bit compromised, right? And so there's a lot of things that make someone hurt more, but like leading contenders, the 2 leading easiest contenders are, you're either eating too much sugar, you're not getting enough sleep, right? Just like that. So if you can, and I've had people go, oh yeah, it's because I haven't slept well in the last 3 nights, so they hurt worse, right? So that's an area, right? Or, yeah, I got that sweet tooth that's been talking to me, you know, late night chocolate, after dinner chocolate, every night, you know? Okay, so those 4 essentials, you can start looking at that as a roadmap, okay? All right, now, you take these 4 essentials, okay? We still want to get to over here. Now, there is something in between our outcome, which is of our health, which is growth, durability, resilience, right? And we have our 4 essentials over here: nourishment, stimulation, recovery, and elimination. What we have in the middle is like the engine. Imagine we got a car, and you gotta get fuel. That's the essentials over here, that's fuel, right? And you have the engine that runs the fuel, which is what we're about to talk about. And then the outcome is how far you go, how the fact that you're moving, you're traveling down that road, right? Now the engine in the middle, okay? It's what your nervous system has to do at all times, okay? Your nervous system is always doing a balance act between 2 things, okay? First thing is it's adapting. So when you go from outside in the heat to inside in the air conditioning, your body has to deal with the change in temperature. When you go from the AC back to outside, it's a change in temperature. When you're sitting and then you stand up, your blood pressure has to go up so you don't pass out, because you gotta get blood up, because I'm challenging, there's less pressure as I go up, right? My body has to adapt to that. If I'm hungry, haven't eaten in a while, my body has to like find and distribute fuel from my storage tanks, like your fat cells, to go and fuel me if I'm not eating, and so on, right? So your body is always adapting. Your nervous system is always detecting, scanning, sensing, and adapting, okay? Now, your nervous system's job isn't only to adapt though, because if it throws everything it has at one challenge, it might not have anything left for the next challenge. So your brain is always adapting efficiently. So adaptation and saving energy. Adaptation efficiently. It always has to balance it out. Do this, but only just enough, right? Like one grand kind of example of this is like, we used to have to run and move around a lot. Again, imagine a hunter-gatherer. They had to run around and move a lot to eat. So they naturally exercised to get food. Okay? Nowadays, we don't have to exercise a bit. We have all the food we need. So we're not prompted, we don't crave running necessarily. Okay? So it's like our brain is now, doing its maximum efficiency thing. That's just an analogy in there. So I deal with this all the time in my practice. This is probably what I work on most directly when I'm working on people. When I work on your spine, when I'm working on your nervous system, I'm either helping your body like adapt better or get more efficient. How I want you to see this is, for the most part, what we do most, we turn into a habit, okay? So when we get stressed, this is what I see over and over and over again, okay? When we're stressed, when we feel a sense of threat, now threat we can interpret in lots and lots of ways, okay? How we've grown up, it teaches us what we choose, or the experiences we have in the past teaches us what we should interpret as a threat or not, okay? So like somebody who grew up with just a loud family that always talked loud, yelled, blah, 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 like that person grows up, and if someone yells at that person, well, whatever, they're just talking with me. There's not a stress in that. But someone else who grew up in an environment that yelling always meant trouble or anger, okay? That person, if someone yells at someone, that's a very big threatening situation for them. So these two people will respond very differently from that same scenario, right? So our past to inform us how we encounter things. Point is that if we are always sensing a threat or a stressor, okay, our body, in order to be efficient, turns our stress into a habit. Habits save us energy. That's why we drive to work the exact same way all the time, because we don't want to figure out a new route, right? When we get dressed, it's the same way we do it all the time. My belt goes around this way and goes around this way. I don't bring my belt around this way, okay? Because we all just have habits, and they save us energy, and they're good. We want to save energy, okay? But some habits obviously don't serve us. And so, as an example, our stress being turned into a habit, in an attempt to save energy, ultimately becomes very, very expensive on our body. Like if we're always, if the alarm bells are always ringing, meaning, so the way this shows up in our bodies individually, for a man's stress response is different from a woman's stress response. Our bodies do a little bit different stuff, okay? So our skeletal system, our muscles, get a lot more calories, okay? Our cardiovascular system gets a lot more exertion, a lot more action, okay? Our digestion gets turned down. We don't use our digestion much. Our long-term memory gets turned off in exchange for short-term, quick, immediate focus and awareness, okay? So like being creative and being thoughtful and having memories about things, that's muted, okay? Our heart rate will go up, and that's why that connection between like getting stressed and having heart attacks or strokes is so strong, because our cardiovascular system is exerting itself a lot more, okay? In a woman's body, a woman's reproductive system is a lot more expensive than a man's reproductive system. When I say expensive, it takes a lot more calories, and it's a lot more complex, right? A man's reproductive system is pretty much stable, right? A woman's reproductive system has lots of ons and offs, right? A monthly cycle. That takes a lot of like interesting physiology, on, off. And on a side note, women have more genes to do this too, by the way. Like if you look at our chromosomes, we have an X and a Y. We're missing a part. Women have an X and an X. There's more genetic code on a woman's genes than a man's, right? Because a woman's physiology is more complex. Y'all are just more difficult. Snicker, right. All right, but the physiology is more complex, right? There's more expensive things to run, okay? So, if a woman is doing constant chronic stress response, it will show up in her reproductive system often enough, right? Female health can be affected, right? Also, a woman's digestion gets turned off because again, it's expensive to run digestion, right? And so constipation happens or irritation happens, irritable bowel, things like that, right? So, we do it differently, but either way, if we're doing this chronically, it's very expensive. So, a lot of my work is built around getting somebody out of the habit, snapping somebody out of the habit, okay? But we can do it ourselves, right? You trained yourself unconsciously about how to be stuck in this high adaptive state, right? But you can also train yourself to be able to switch between high adaptive and calm, right? And the piece of advice I give most people, this might sound familiar, is like, let's say you're going from task to task. Well, between one task and the next, pause, give yourself a moment, be still. Let's say just for 60 seconds, just sit still. Give your mind, your body a chance to disengage a moment. And you're gonna begin to train yourself how to relax, okay? How to relax training is, it sounds stupid, but boy, it's useful, okay? Think in this middle section where this grand map I'm describing, how you got your 4 essentials, you got your 2 balanced things between adapting and being efficient, and then you got your outcome of health, your durability, your resilience, and growth, right? So now I spend a lot of time thinking on this stuff. This is my field, my area, my expertise. I do a lot of learning on this stuff. But like, you yourself can, with this roadmap, think on this, be aware of this. Like, if you can check in with yourself, and if you're struggling with something, check in with yourself, and maybe you can notice if, am I not bringing up enough energy? Like if let's say I'm stuck in efficiency mode, like I'm not adapting well enough, I'm just stuck. Okay? If you're stuck on something, anything habitual, anything stuck, it means you're not putting enough energy into it, okay? Or if you don't relax well, you're all go, right? You're stuck going, okay? Like, in other words, knowing that that's what your nervous system is always doing, between either like adapting and expending and tweaking and moving, right? Or trying to save energy, knowing that those are the 2 things you're balancing. See if you can spot in your life, if you're not happy with something, if you're having trouble with something or challenge with something, I bet you could probably notice which one you think you're in. And then you might be able to find your own solutions. Listen to your own wisdom on the inside. Because believe me, it's rich and abundant within us all, okay? Like, you can come to an expert and I can maybe help you, guide you, work on you, and do stuff like this. We all need each other, we all need help. But also, we also are very powerful and efficient and creative on your own right. And no one's a better master of your own life than you are, right? And beyond that, no one's gonna be able to make changes in your life other than you anyway, right? So feeling powerful about your own life is the key here, right? I use power like you define power in physics. Power is the ability to do work, and you can do work, execute work in your own life, okay? But maybe this roadmap can help you decide where to allocate some of your attention, right? So that's the highlights. This is the nuts and bolts. This is the high level roadmap. Do you guys have any questions? Okay. All right. So that's it. There's no other secret sauce. All right. That's the class. That's the talk. Okay. But is there anything like I might I'm gonna edit this video. I might like take out some clips or add some or just edit things, turn it into a bunch of small clips maybe. So if anybody has any questions, but you don't feel comfortable asking it or recording it, don't worry, I won't include it on the recording. So when anyone like to ask me anything, we can like break down anything specifically if you want. And if you don't, it's okay. But if you got me, if you want to break something down, we can. Now I already have one topic I'm going to talk about. I'll talk a little bit more about something. But anything specific?
I'm not quite clear on this example that he gave. He said when we feel stuck, it means we don't have enough energy. So
Okay.
what would be the energy? What kind of energy? Like we need to eat more or go like tanning or something?
Okay. So, so when I said energy, I meant specifically calories. Like your body drumming up energy for it. Like so, and if you're picturing between your body's stuck in energy saving mode
Mm-hmm.
or stuck in go mode, okay? If you're noticing yourself stuck, and I'm saying you don't have enough energy, so what you need obviously can vary based on you. So if you are stuck and you're not sleeping well, the way you might get more energy is change your strategy around your sleep, right? Or if let's say you eat a standard American diet and you just eat sugar from one thing to the next and lousy stuff, you might need to eat more vegetables, that kind of idea. Or if you're inactive, go to bed wearing your exercise clothes so you can wake up in the next morning and be ready to go. There's any of those things can apply. Okay, so I'm being kind of general,
Mm-hmm.
but a specific problem will also call for like a specific solution depending on that. So, it depends on what someone's stuck with. So that would be my answer on that.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I felt like with that stuck mode, it felt like the pandemic actually kind of helped both of those modes because people who are in go had to
Stop.
Yep, and
Yep.
people who needed more, they had to come up with creativity and things to kind of keep things going too. So it
Yeah.
kind of helped.
Yeah, it's true. Like you're right. You're totally right. You can see that event, this event,
Mhm.
as like we can grow from it. You know, because like
I try to look at the positives.
yeah, it's a stressor. It's a stressor for us all, and so we can use the stressor for growth, right? There's so many families that when kids couldn't go to school anymore, and now you got to turn into a homeschool crowd. Like, okay, well, we got to like adapt to this. We got to
Mhm.
figure out how we're going
Don't
to
have a
do
choice.
this. Right? Yep, exactly. Right. Any other questions? All right. So one of the things I do want to talk about with some more specifics is anxiety and depression. Are we comfortable if we talk about that a little bit? Okay, like ways to